One of the most powerful names in hip-hop is now locked away in a Brooklyn jail cell. But it's not just the fall from fame that has people talking, it's the dark, twisted allegations spilling out in court. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs built an empire on luxury, celebrity connections, and unstoppable influence. But now, former lovers, ex-friends, and federal prosecutors are peeling back the curtain, and what they're claiming is more disturbing than anyone expected. A secret life of manipulation, coercion, and underground freak-offs? That's what the courtroom is hearing, and it's just the beginning. One of his exes just revealed that their relationship wasn't just toxic, it was a trap. So how did Diddy go from living in mansions to facing federal sex trafficking charges? And what are prosecutors saying he tried to keep hidden for years? Let's break it down. They call her Jane in court. No last name, no photos, just a hidden identity and a voice shaking the foundation of Diddy's entire defense. Jane isn't just some anonymous accuser. She's a former lover who says she was pulled into a world of power, control, and abuse that she never saw coming. Their relationship started in 2021, on and off for 3 years. But according to her, things turned dark almost immediately. What began as what she thought was a wild one-night fling with a sex worker quickly spiraled into something far more disturbing. She claims Diddy orchestrated what he called hotel night, sometimes lasting up to 3.5 days, where she was allegedly pressured to sleep with multiple men, back to back, while he watched or directed from the shadows. And it didn't stop at sex. Jane told the courtroom that she occasionally transported drugs for him, not because she wanted to, but because she didn't feel like she had a choice. Prosecutors say this wasn't a casual relationship. It was a piece of a much larger system of control. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Jane revealed she has a child with one of Diddy's known rivals. Who that is hasn't been confirmed publicly, but the implication? It adds a whole new layer of tension and betrayal to a case already packed with drama. But as explosive as Jane's story is, she's not the only one speaking out. By September 2024, the whispers had grown too loud to ignore. The lawsuits, the leaked footage, the sudden settlements, it all pointed to something bigger brewing beneath the surface. Then came the moment that changed everything. Sean Diddy Combs was arrested and hit with a wave of federal charges that could put him away for decades. Sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for the purpose of prostitution. It wasn't just a case, it was a full-blown RICO investigation. And for those who don't know, RICO isn't used for ordinary crime. It's what the government pulls out when they believe they're dealing with a criminal enterprise. Something organized, calculated, and deeply layered. Prosecutors allege that Diddy wasn't just throwing wild parties. They claim he built a secret network of control, using money, drugs, and fear to manipulate women into what they called freak-off. Multi-day sex marathons involving escorts, drugs, and video cameras. Allegedly, there are tapes. Allegedly, some of those women were trafficked. And allegedly, it was all by design. According to the government, these weren't isolated incidents. They're calling it a pattern, a system. And now they're using the same laws once used against mob bosses and kingpins to try and bring down one of hip-hop's most iconic figures. But the legal battle wasn't just about the charges. What happened in that courtroom next raised even more eyebrows. Just when things couldn't get more chaotic, a new witness stepped in and nearly flipped the trial on its head. Brianna Bana Bongolan, a longtime friend of Cassie Ventura, took the stand and made a chilling claim. She said that in September 2016, Diddy dangled her over a balcony during a violent outburst in Los Angeles. The courtroom was stunned, but Diddy's defense team was ready. Within hours, they fired back, accusing the prosecution of playing dirty. According to them, the timeline didn't add up. They claimed Diddy was on the East Coast at the time, nowhere near the LA balcony where the alleged incident took place. And they weren't just disputing the fact. They were accusing the government of knowingly allowing false testimony into evidence. In a sharply worded letter to the judge, Diddy's lawyers argued that the prosecution either knew or should have known that Bongolan's story was materially false. Their demand? An immediate mistrial. Not just over the testimony, but over what they called a pattern of misconduct. It wasn't the first time they'd tried. Back in May, the defense had already pushed for a mistrial, claiming prosecutors hinted that Diddy destroyed evidence in connection to an alleged arson incident. Another accusation that never stuck. But Judge Aaron Subramanian Subramanian wasn't convinced. He shot down both attempts, saying there was no actual prejudice, no legal grounds to toss the case. Still, the cracks were starting to show. If the government's key witnesses were shaky, what else in this case might fall apart under pressure? And while the courtroom fights raged on, Diddy himself was facing a much different kind of reality. In court, every word counts, and Diddy's legal team has been fighting like their client's life depends on it, because it might. From day one, they've painted the case as a media-fueled witch hunt, a rush to convict a black mogul based on gossip, old grudges, and attention-hungry witnesses. And every time the prosecution slips, the defense is ready to pound. When Brianna Bongolan's timeline didn't line up, they called it intentional misconduct. When prosecutors mentioned the possibility of evidence being destroyed in an old arson case, the defense claimed it was a deliberate attempt to prejudice the jury. And when that failed, they pivoted to a new angle, accusing the government of bending the rules to win at any cost. But prosecutors aren't backing down either. They say the evidence speaks for itself, that the video footage, the patterns, and the parade of witnesses tell one damning story. According to them, this isn't about character assassination. It's about exposing a decades-long system of abuse, one that used fame as a weapon. It's a high-stakes war of narrative, one side claiming Diddy's being framed by opportunists, the other arguing he ran a secret empire in plain sight. And while the legal back and forth plays out in motions and objections, Diddy is living through something far more personal. If the jury decides Diddy is guilty, this won't be a slap on the wrist. It could mean the end of everything he's built. The charges stacked against him aren't minor. We're talking federal sex trafficking, racketeering under RICO, and transporting individuals for prostitution, the kind of charges that come with decades in prison. And because this is a federal case, there's no room for leniency or early parole. If convicted, Diddy could be facing 25 years to life. And it wouldn't just be his freedom on the line. His music empire, brand deals, and multi-million-dollar business ventures would collapse overnight. Ciroc? Gone. Revolt? Done. His legacy in hip-hop? Permanently sane. We've already seen major brands and former collaborators distance themselves, and that's before a verdict has even been reached. But the real question isn't just about prison time. It's about how deep this goes. Because if prosecutors can prove he ran an organized network of abuse, it could trigger more investigations, more indictment, and more names coming forward. Some insiders believe the case could blow open a much larger scandal involving other major figures in the entertainment industry. So what happens next? The jury still has to decide, and the clock is ticking. But even if Diddy walks free, one thing's already clear. His old life is gone, and the world's watching to see what comes out before the curtain fully closes. We're now in the final stretch. Week 6 of the trial is underway, and Judge Arun Subramanian says he hopes to have everything wrapped up by July 4th. But the courtroom isn't slowing down. In fact, it's heating up. Jane is still on the stand, entering her third straight day of testimony. Her claims are only growing more intense, and the prosecution is clearly betting big on her story, anchoring their entire case. Meanwhile, Diddy's lawyers are doing everything they can to shake her credibility, dissecting her timeline and questioning her motive. Behind the scenes, legal experts are split. Some say the government has laid out a clear pattern of abuse and control, enough to make the RICO charges stick. Others argue the witnesses have too many contradictions, too much personal history, and too many loose ends for a jury to confidently convict on every count. And through it all, Diddy remains silent, locked in a special housing unit in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. No bail, no media appearances, no flashy statement. Just court day after day as the walls close in. Will the jury see a manipulative empire hidden in plain sight? Or will they believe this was all a twisted exaggeration built on old beefs and blurred memories? We're just days away from finding out. No matter how this trial ends, one thing is certain. The myth of Diddy has shattered. For decades, he was untouchable. A music mogul, a tastemaker, a symbol of power and success. But now, that image is in ruin, replaced by something darker, more complicated, and deeply unsettling. If the jury convicts, it'll mark one of the biggest downfalls in music history, the kind that rewrites legacies and forces an industry to look in the mirror. But if he walks free, the questions won't go away. The testimony, the leaked footage, the stories from people who stayed silent for years, they'll still be there, haunting his name long after the trial ends. This case isn't just about one man. It's about fame, power, and what happens when no one says stop. And whether Diddy is found guilty or not, the world will never see him the same again. Because once the curtain is pulled back, you can't unsee what was hiding behind it.